And we're live.
Well, not much point in saying we're live because I can't keep your voice if the music is playing in the background, really.
It's not.
No, it was still.
There's a delay on your end.
It was still really. Oh, okay. So you actually.
There's like a 2-3 second delay. It's not like it's instant. There's like a 2-3 second catch up rate.
Yeah. It's spooling. It's caching. Actually,
No, it just takes a bit to transmit over.
how do you do your local recording anyway? You're grabbing it through Audacity. Are you actually specifically only taking the? Wow. So what gets sent to stream anyway? Are you mixing Discord and then your microphone directly somehow?
No. Basically what OBS. Okay, so the endpoint is Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
And to get to Twitch, it's using OBS. OBS is now taking in my microphone talk as a source, as an audio source, and then anything I take off my desk, anything coming to my ears as the other source, and then sending it off to Twitch.
Could you make a note to try to tweak that to get just Discord as your other audio input? That way you can have system sounds or a video game or something, and its audio can't get picked up. So it will be worth your time investigating. We can run tests at another time anyway.
I had that at one point, and then OBS for some reason didn't work, so I had to completely uninstall and reinstall it. I just left it alone.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of people are like that. Like, yeah. So our proper beginning is supposed to be hi everyone. This is 2020-09-27, episode number 22. So we have one minor change that I'll talk about in segment 3. But other than that, let's get right into it. So right now, I am for the first time actually using a set of cookware in the oven. And it's one of these things where I buy it with that in mind. And it's not something you can do with all kinds of bakeware because some of them will have fragile handles. And even though the material of the actual bakeware could be like stainless steel, for example, and it will like survive in the oven. If the entirety of it isn't rated, then you don't know if anything's going to warp or whatever. But I have this bakeware. It's not really good for that. And you can tell if the bakeware is good for like 450 Fahrenheit, something like this. If it's rated for that, for like 450, 500 even, which is ridiculous, then you can like broil with it. And you can have what's the term? I can't remember because I don't really know how to cook. Anyhow, if you have bakeware that can handle that kind of thing, then suddenly, now you can get rid of all kinds of like casserole dishes, right? So I've got a particular pan. It's a deep pan with like high walls. High walls are like 90 degrees. And so it's not a frying pan, so it's made for all kinds of stuff like this. And I'm using it. I'm using it right now, actually, and I'm gonna send Minion off to be my minion and press a button in like 15 minutes or something like that. And what's happening there is I've got pierogies. Hey, I can remember that word now. Okay, so I've got pierogies, and they're actually being baked. And I've never done that before, but I'm not baking them like on a baking pan or something like that. I'm baking them in some weird variation of a casserole, which is just, I'm trying to get rid of the last of my my pasta sauce because I'm not eating pasta anymore. And so I'm just like, it's actually a recipe on the back of the box for the pierogies. So it's viable, I think. So it's just the pierogies plus the pasta sauce plus, and I'm looking at the box and it's saying, well, so you do this, and then you add your choice of vegetables, and you add cheese on top. Well, I don't have any cheese. And vegetables.
Oh, speaking of which, do you want to... No, today's Sunday. I'm thinking of going back to Costco and grabbing a cheese.
You mean like feta?
No, not feta, just like I don't know, cheddar or something, because I ever since I knew Alfredo's that doesn't have that much of a taste to it. Like the first few bites are good, and then halfway through it's kind of like waterish tasting, and then at the end I'm just slogging through. It's like this doesn't taste as good anymore.
Okay, so some background. All I had a huge box because I was working on 10 years of stuff, so I had like a good year worth of pasta that I was working on like buying in bulk. So I had this big box that's probably worth like several months easily, and I can't eat pasta anymore because I'll get a criminal record because of it. And judges probably won't believe me when I say like it's the pasta. So I gave it all to Minion, and Minion's like, well, because he doesn't want my pasta sauce. Not that I had a huge amount, but I had like 11 cans, and so he likes Alfredo sauce, so white sauce, and so Minion, you were saying that you were exploring, so you tried like 3 different varieties. You haven't actually
I
tasted them all.
only have one.
You only have one variety of
I've only
sauce?
had one and it's almost done.
No. I mean, because you had from powder, and you still have a jar left. So you haven't tried those yet, have you?
I've only tried one thing so far, and that one thing's almost out, so either tomorrow or I got to take a picture and record stuff this time.
So you're gonna like take a picture of the ingredients list.
I'm going to take a picture of the physical thing and then rate it.
Oh, you're gonna be like clickety clack. You're gonna be a Karen. You're gonna put up a Yelp review.
No, just for my own self.
So
My tastes are weird and I don't want to drag other people with me.
I'm confused. Who else is going to see it? How are you actually presenting it to the world?
I am not presenting to the world. This is something that'll take to my grave with me.
So this is for your future self, just to not make this mistake again.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. I mean, this,
because after a while with other things, you just learn.
yeah. So this,
And I'd rather not make the mistake twice.
well, this is the archivist in all of us. So if you write it down, now you can forget it forever, or rather, you can have like, well, we have phones with a huge amount of storage now, so theoretically speaking, always make a backup. But theoretically speaking, what you could do is you could like, this is why I want shopping lists to have incredible functionality for stuff like this, because you could have like a catalog of pictures and some commentary, and you could be like, Alfredo sauce has an empty check mark because you need to buy more, and priorities and all this kind of stuff. And then you've got like, these are my in the preferred order. I could go to this grocery store for this or this stuff, or I can go to the corner store for that stuff. And this is what my favorite, but if they're out of that, go try this. And then you have like your personal reviews in there as well to explain to your future self, who doesn't remember any of this stuff, like why you do or don't like things. But like, if I were a software developer, or I were still in the business of funding software developers, this is the kind of stuff I would definitely like make. Like how much more interesting an experience would it be if you were grocery shopping, and because I was talking with Minion the other day something about this, which is how awesome would it be if you pull up your list, it's got a list of priorities. It's like, oh, hey, do you feel like going out grocery shopping? Well, where do you want to go? And it does, because you can't assume that you're going to drive around and go to like 4 different grocery stores. Like, who does that? So you're like, well, I feel like dropping.
What, you don't?
No, actually, I'm dude bro about this. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to Walmart, and I go just there. And it's very rare that I get derailed and go someplace else for any reason. And
I mean, if you're already out shopping, couldn't you just realize, like, I'm going shopping for this, might as well stop by for that. And while I'm at it, let's go pick this up as well from here.
yeah, so that's kind of like the mall experience expanded out throughout the city kind of thing. And no, I don't really think of things that way. I will have like point A and point B, and I might plan multiple stops along that. And I might have plans somewhere and swing past someplace else. But I prefer to have things lined up, all my ducks lined up in a row, so that I can kind of mentally know or plan or budget or decide how much I want to carry. Now, that does leave me, I am still fine with being derailed, being excited, walking past a place and being like, oh, yeah, I want to go and look at mattress prices because I want to go buy a new mattress. Well, I mean, this is a place right here. Just pop in. And I don't mind doing that, but I never really plan for a massive, like, I don't want an epic storyline going through the entirety of the city, through all these different places. I want to just have my favorite grocery store. And when they don't have a bunch of the stuff I don't like, well, okay, that's it. Next time I go grocery shopping at another place, and then I pick up all that other stuff. So a shopping list for me would not just be by products that I need. It would be where I could get it. And so there are some apps you can get that will help you with grocery shopping where you can actually filter it down. You can look at it in terms of, well, what do I actually need and what are the priorities? Or you can sort it by the name of the grocery store. So I like that, but it could do more. So the idea I had in mind, which is, I was trying to articulate it the other day, and it goes, well, what if I say, okay, well, I'm going to go to this grocery store. And so I pull up the list and it shows me the priorities and whatever other details I want. If it could have like personal reviews, or it could like have a copy of some product website with its own reviews, like just download it into the phone already ahead of time. And maybe it could have my own product notes and my own pictures or whatever the heck. But then what it does is does a breakdown of the actual store itself. And I was joking that it would be really awesome if I walked into the place and your phone has GPS. It's GPS that's accurate to 1 meter, and you've got like a compass function in there. Mine really stinks. I think it's my phone, not the functionality. And so you can actually do a crazy arrow where it's like, oh, it points you towards this aisle, and you're going down this aisle. And it will be like, hey, the product is over here. And this doesn't have to be mapped out to like any sort of official data from the grocery store. Although you know that once this stuff kind of exists, the grocery stores might actually get on board in the same way that like Google Maps actually they seem to have relationships with cities to understand bus schedules, and they have for some time. And it seems to be really accurate because you can have situations where there's construction or something like that. And then they will know, like if you're doing route planning, they'll know if there's that delay, or they'll know if there's a schedule shift. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but maybe Google talks to cities and like there's some functionality there. Maybe grocery stores would be interested in something like that too. So if they move a product to a different part of an aisle or whatever the heck, they can actually update the app database. But I think it would be really cool if I walk by, I could take pictures of the aisle. I mean, take pictures responsibly. I actually know of a grocery store where I know a woman that was taking pictures in it, and she was actually asked to stop. And I'm not really sure why that would matter, because it's not like it's kind of like an open secret. What are they trying to do? Like prevent the competition from arranging their stuff in a similar way? Like what could be wrong with that? All grocery stores should be laid out kind of the same, because you're trying to empower your customers to actually go out there and buy your products. So having consistency between all grocery stores it can only be a good thing, because it will only encourage people to shop and to know where to go. But I mean, I guess it's kind of like theme parks or shopping malls, where you want a customer to come in and kind of like wander around and get lost and maybe do as much window shopping as possible. I'm highly resistant to that, but I do understand the idea of walking down every aisle just in case I forget some of the things. Like, oh yeah, I wanted to get some granulated garlic or something like that, and maybe I didn't remember. Like, Minion, you were making fun of me the other day when I was like really working on a shopping list, and because I was still kind of playing with my phone for stuff like this. So for notes, and the idea is I take notes so that it's not in my brain anymore. It doesn't have to be, because I have way too much going on in my head, and every opportunity I can have to dump out some of that stuff, some of that responsibility out into an app or something like that. It helps me way so much. Now, Minion, while we're talking, could you like run off to the kitchen and press the stop button on the oven? So it doesn't, I'm not sure what's happening inside, but leave whatever's inside
All
inside.
right, going. Don't. So just press stop button and don't look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless you smell burning, then panic. Okay. So Minion was making fun of me for having for making this big to-do list. And then we were doing shopping and and we would swing by something and I'm like, oh, I should get one of that. And it's not on my list, but I wanted to get it. So I was like, okay, well, do I want this? Do I want like natural peanut butter to be a part of my life? Like, so that it goes on a shopping list so that I can prioritize it and maybe I'll always have some on hand. And if it's low priority, it's like, well, do I have the grocery shopping budget, or have I already spent a whole lot on working on buying in bulk? I've talked about this before. Groceries is one of the ways that you can dig yourself out of debt. So you start purchasing food in bulk. What that does is that means you have a pantry where you can look at it and you can know you have a whole bunch of food, and it reduces food anxiety, which is a really big thing that's out there, especially given the times. And you have everything on hand so that you're not running out of anything and you're not being forced to run out to buy stuff. So if it's not going to expire anytime soon, so most canned goods, a lot of things like pasta, even rice lasts a long time, but you need to keep it under certain circumstances. I have big bins that I put them in just to make sure that, like, I'm really glad because we had a bug problem this one time, which I could talk about it at some point. And so you can buy a whole lot of food in bulk. It just makes your life more expensive while you're pursuing this. And as soon as you need to, you can relax buying in bulk and you're not going to starve. You can even just not buy groceries that month. And now you have that as quote unquote emergency money. Well, once you get used to paying more in your grocery funding for however many like months on end, at some point you can reduce that because you've already bought in bulk. You already have enough pasta. And unless you're like me and discover that pasta is no good for you, you've got years, like pasta will last for a year solid, written on the bag or box or whatever. And it'll probably last for a significant amount of time after. So awesome. So you can definitely keep a whole lot of it with an understanding of how much you're going to use, right? So if things vary wildly because you've got a family of however many, so what they feel like eating isn't really on a schedule necessarily, so your buying in bulk is kind of wacky. You never want to come to a point where you're like, okay, everybody, we're eating like beans and rice for the next week because we have so much of it and I don't want my cans of beans to go bad. Well, because that defeats the purpose of buying in bulk. You never want to subject anybody, and you don't want to subject yourself to something like that. So, Minion, are you back yet?
I've been back for a while.
Okay. So, the oven thing didn't work out?
I hit cancel and then walked away.
Excellent.
Nothing seemed to be on fire.
I'm pretty sure the bakeware is going to survive the temperature. I actually I set it all up, then went and I looked online. I'm like, no, I made assumptions because I don't know what I'm doing. And I went, so I've got this pierogies on the box. It says that you can do all this stuff. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have any cheese. So but I have bacon. I kind of need bacon in my life again. I haven't eaten it in days, and I feel great. I think it's just a rebound from my pasta experience. But I use that energy to actually clean my room. So I had a friend of mine joking that it's the cocaine experience, but like I wouldn't know. But okay, it doesn't matter if you're in a good mood. Begin the momentum, like drop everything else as soon, and then you get to experience that the benefit of having had a good day. Like as soon as you're feeling great about things, like don't make your day the usual. Don't make it the same as when you're kind of in a terrible mood. Actually take it full advantage of that wonderful feeling and go and do all the interesting, all the important things, like all the stuff that matters to you in life. And then, when life gets you down, that's when you kind of go on autopilot and do your everyday stuff. But you're doing your everyday stuff in an enhanced environment that you created for yourself when you were having, when you're really motivated. And this is very much like the buying in bulk thing, where you've prepared an environment for yourself and some emergency happens and you can actually just stop your grocery bill. You've got funding that appears out of nowhere. You're not going to go hungry. Everything's okay. You've got that funding to buy that. So you're investing money into groceries in a sense. You can withdraw from that or cancel it completely for a bit and have that as a way of saving money. So you have a huge, it's small, right? But it's an amount of money that you can now work on to hammer away at debt, first off. Because if you're in debt, you have negative money. And people purchase, so there's so this is specific to the United States, but I'm sure it exists everywhere. There is an entire class of person, and the breakdown of how they spend is examined. I'm actually not sure how these data are collected, but the poverty is a concern internally at the governmental level. I'm not sure why, because they seem to just throw their money away. So maybe there are some people that are actually good at heart in government. Shrug, maybe. And so what they do is they look at families or individuals. They understand poverty and income and all this kind of stuff. Like, these things are actually important to understand at a really deep level. And one of the things that they examine, other than debt, is their spending patterns. So like, well, why are these people poor? Like, why are these people not eating as well as they should? Why? Well, one of the things they discover is the people who are most poor also purchase a very substantially larger amount of luxury goods than like the middle class. And it's like, well, how is that even a thing? Because they have less money. And as it turns out, it's one of the coping mechanisms. So if you're poor, one of the coping mechanisms is you treat yourself. And like, don't get me wrong, luxury goods does not mean like buying the best car. Luxury goods doesn't mean that kind of stuff. Doesn't mean, it means like going out and buying fast food. Like, that's a luxury good. The world has not yet discovered the consequences of the economic pressures that are coming upon us. We are going to discover just what a quote-unquote essential service is. And eating out is not essential. And if you've got no money, you need to not eat out. Period. Like, ever again. I'm sorry. Your luxury is going to be buying herbs at the grocery store, like terrible quality herbs, and using that in your life. Like, a lot of people are going to be going through, for a second time, the college experience of eating next to nothing. And kind of like, cheese is a luxury. It really is. And so if you're surviving on pasta and throwing in like a slightly more expensive pasta sauce, that's a luxury good. So there are all these people who they actually spend quite a lot on things that aren't essential just because they're poor. Because the poor experience, once you're getting close to the poverty line kind of experience, and there's a lot of people that float around there, you're going to find that there are a lot of people who drink or who smoke. And you can make the argument, okay, well, smoking is an addiction and it's not really a choice. But people get there. But people get there because that ends up being a stress altering experience, maybe a stress reducing experience. Same with drinking, which is absolutely a non-essential, like absolutely. And I'm not making any teetotaler argument or anything like that. I happen to not drink, but that never influences my opinion of somebody else drinking. But I do look at it, and if you see somebody who has less money or who's in debt who drinks, you're like, well, I mean, you can think all highly of yourself, like, I wouldn't do that kind of stuff. Fine. But it is observed as fact that people with less money waste, quote unquote, waste. And a lot of people are like, well, that's why they're poor. Okay, it doesn't work like that. It does start somewhere. And you can make all kinds of arguments like it's the regional, societal, or whatever the heck. And that's also not true. You can make all kinds of claims. They will all be false. It's always some combination of stuff like, oh man, statistics really bothers me. I'm so not going to get there right now because I want to go talk about other stuff. Yeah. Because people's understanding of wealth and of demographic, so like economic demographic, it's wrong. It's actually technically wrong. And it's not me making some argument of either personal experience or some economic understanding from going to school or something like that. It's all people, professionally or not, have comprehend the problem just wrong because it's never skewed towards whatever their ideas of things are. It's always complicated. And as soon as you take individuals, you throw away their humanity and you think of everything as statistics and as demographics, you're doing an incredible disservice to all the individuals that have their individual problems. That's the problem. Governments have to think at that level, which is really strange. Local government shouldn't have to. Local government should understand individuals with individual problems. It's not that hard. Like, I would love to see politics broken down and that's the thing. I love to see it at the group level, like the neighborhood level, and then neighborhoods interacting, and then having that filter up to like a mayor, and then the various mayors all collaborate, and then there's like a regional person, and then between all the regional, there would be, so for the United States, it would be state level. For Canada, it would be provincial level. And that's how the politics filters up. But right down at the bottom, you might think it's inefficient. But honestly, what kind of representation are you going to get if it's just some mayor somewhere and then some governor somewhere? And there are very few circumstances where you can go down to the mayor's house, unless you've got a really small town kind of thing. And so the problem is, once you're talking neighborhood levels, like you can kind of arrange that in certain ways. Just figure it out, like shrug, who cares kind of thing. But make it so people can visit and there can be regular meetings and stuff like that. But the problem is, boy, are you going to get a lot of small town stuff. Like people that have experienced the homeowners association experience understand completely that there's always the busybody sorts. And they have no time / like this becomes, well, they do have time, right? Those people do have time. They don't. So participation happens from these people that are highly interested. And those highly interested people are not necessarily the ones who are competent at voicing the concerns of the region. So in a homeowners association, there are all these busybodies, and some of them are rules lawyers, which is a tabletop role-playing concept. They're rules lawyers, so they're like, well, your curtains are the wrong color. Well, this and this. And it's like, you left a soccer ball in your front lawn overnight, and that's against bylaw number. I can imagine neighborhood level stuff being that bad And that's a problem that would need to be really deeply thought about. And that problem would have to be overcome before some strange, differently collective variation of politics comes out. This is something I could think about. This show's not about politics, but I will talk about the individual economics because, you in your life and your motivation, getting yourself out of debt is probably your economic sovereignty is about as important as anything, because if you're in debt and if you're paying interest, that's slavery. Some percentage of your income goes not to you in any sense, but to some body somewhere else. You are literally working for nothing, which is slavery. And people don't understand this. Like, why is compound interest legal? Your economic freedom is essentially the freedom of your time. It's your like being tied economically, being employed, being forced to be employed because life is more expensive because of somebody else. All these other, there are nuances that are just unfair to everyday people, and most especially to the poor. And so if you have to think about, if you are in debt, you are poor. I don't care what your income is, you're poor. You have negative money. And yes, if you've got a mortgage, you're poor. And all that stuff has to be paid off, and you have to be free and clear before you can declare yourself a sovereign human being. You are a slave if you have debt and you have interest on that debt that is compound. And that's specific. Regular interest, if that's even a thing anymore, is fine. That's an agreement you make where you go to your shark and you say, well, I need X money. And they go, okay, well, I can give you X money up front, but you're going to pay me X money plus a little bit as the thank you for this potential. And that's fine. That's a free relationship that you're welcome to go into. However, if it becomes an ongoing responsibility for you to continue working for them for free, not just for that thank you tip, then it's a really huge problem. So I haven't actually finished talking about the pierogies thing. I love being derailed. It's so exciting. So I'm adding.
You mean constant? It's. I wouldn't say you're being derailed as you just ramble off.
Well, I have no problems attaching my voice to my brain. And the podcast experience, and soon enough the live streaming experience, is made far more interesting to viewers. And so we have people that are watching who maybe they'll have me in the background, and that's part of the problem. If I'm interesting, I can't be in the background, which is just going to be torture, which I'm probably going to be perfectly fine with. Like, how many like games streamers could actually talk meaningfully about anything ever? Are they even adults? Like, there are people who are streaming who are in their 30s, let's say, right? And we would call that a quote unquote adult. And they're making money. Like, in some cases, this is a job. It's a bad job. And I could talk about why that's bad. And again, it's an economics thing. But it's just fluff constantly. So I like the fact that I'm learning to attach. So there's stream of consciousness. There's a writing style for that. It's a garbage writing style, and those people should feel bad about themselves. But the notion can be matured into something where the writing, or in my case, the thinking and the speaking, is intelligible. So there are trains of thought, even if they go off where they go off. Train of thought is not the right kind of thinking tool for this, right? Because train of thought, the notion is that there could be a path and you just go off someplace else. This has no path in the first place. Like, unless you want to say that my bullet points in some notes is a path, it's kind of not. It's a prompt, so I never have stuff to run out of talking about, right? So there's no train. It's a balloon being buffeted about in the wind kind of thing. So the pierogies thing, the baking it in the oven is something that I just assumed I could do. So I'm looking at the box and it goes, blah, 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 add your own cheese. I'm like, I have no cheese. but I have bacon, so I threw bacon on top. And like, okay, well, like bacon is now a vegetable.
There's feta, which you could have done.
Okay, so
I don't know if it was a good idea, but
well, the problem is feta is a very strong taste. And so it may not be appropriate for this. And I was actually using pretty potent, pretty spicy sauce. And second is I'd have to ask you, I'm not like, oh man, if anybody has ever like lived with somebody, like, so for example, if you don't own the property and somebody else is renting the next room over, but you're sharing a fridge, like it's like the office fridge thing. It's like your food is vulnerable. It's not a thing really in Canada at all that I've ever heard of, but there are those businesses where they're kind of awful for stuff like that. I would never put myself in a circumstance where I would like graze through somebody else's food. Again, it's a food security thing. I have moved from places because the one person grazed on another person's food. And I just went, nope, a solidarity. I'm also moving out of this place. There's that you don't touch my food ever. Like there's a whole class of stuff that I will not accept somebody else going near. And I end up, it's hard for me to understand somebody that works different from me. And I think the same is true for everybody with everybody else. And so having the standing acceptance of something like stealing condiment, having that be there is still something I'm not comfortable with. And I will never give that in return. I want everybody to always ask me every single time they want to like have my ketchup, right? And it sounds really odd for some people because they go from like living with their parents to living with other people and they assume that everything works the same way. It's like, no, maybe you're not an adult yet because you go like work and you've got all this free money, but you don't understand something like digging yourself out of debt or whatever. So you have people that are grown-ups that still have their student debt that now act like they're rich because they have a job. Well, it's like, no, you're poorer than you were at school because at school you were collecting more and more of a debt. Now you got the full thing plus interest plus probably compound interest. And so they act and they spend in really strange ways. And one of the things they act like they're still with their parents or still with their university buddies or something like that, where there's this kind of commune. It's like, no, I'm not sharing my toothpaste. I'm going to throw the entire tube out and no, you can't have it. I'm throwing it out as protest. It's still my property. No, you can't have any. It's just, no, you can't even fish it out of the garbage bin. I will squeeze the tube out in the toilet. I'll do it in front of you. No, just no. And so it would never even occur to me to steal somebody's cheese. Like cheese is a luxury, man. And that's still in my head. And that's still in my head because I have good taste for cheese. I have bad taste for a lot of stuff, but cheese is the one thing that I have good taste in because although I was not raised Dutch, I did experience the Dutch. So in the Netherlands is where Gouda comes from. And so I had a very specific kind of Gouda. It's actually hard to find in a lot of places, but you're going to have that one cheese aisle that's right next to your terrible yogurt and your eggs and stuff like that. But it's somewhere else. Maybe it's like a little island somewhere near your, what's it called? Like where they have all your luncheon meat in the giant blocks that you have to get shaved for you. It's like going to be over there where your good cheeses are. And if you want to make a really good sandwich, that's where you go. You don't go to like the aisle that has the terrible beef jerky sticks and the bologna and the pre-sliced cheese and the blocks of cheddar. You don't go there. You go to this other little place, and sometimes you can go to like a separate store, and they just like a delicatessen. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't know what it would be called in a grocery store context, But you go there and they have the nice cheeses. But even if you go there, you go through and it's got a bunch of like really expensive cheese. They won't have the kind of Gouda I like. So, I mean, I have really good taste in Gouda. It's something called, well, you might just generically call it Dutch spiced Gouda. But it's got cumin in it, which I guess that sounds really weird for other people, but I absolutely love it. It's I mean, maybe I would call it a lightly roasted cumin that's put in there. It's really good. So I've had a few different kinds of like herbs and spices are different depending on freshness and depending on stuff. And so the cumin experience, I bought a bunch of it in bulk from an Indian place because cumin is really, really big in a lot of Indian dishes. Like India is a big place and there's a lot of dishes, so saying Indian dish doesn't really mean anything. So I just know it's one of the things that's stocked up in some culture, some subculture within India. But I found one of these specialty stores run by Indians who import stuff from India and otherwise have a bunch of stuff that they really like in their dishes, personally. So I went and bought cumin from these guys because you could buy in a big bag. And it's terrible. It's terrible because it tastes green. And even if I like pan fry it with some oil, which is a little hard actually, Mom used to roast this in a ladle over the like electric burner, and I can't really reproduce that. Maybe I don't have the right ladle, but little pan and just make absolutely sure moisture doesn't get anywhere near it, or you will burn yourself. It'll sputter everywhere. But it's bad. So like getting good cumin is hard. So, but I have this love for it, and I have this love for this cheese, and it's bloody expensive cheese, like really expensive. And I mean, of course, it's imported and it's cheese. And so that's the kind of stuff that I would love to put on a pasta or something like this. But when the cheese you sprinkle on your dish is more expensive than the dish, it's a little weird. So I would want to have a really good dish, like a really, really high quality recipe in order to really just add that extra bit and have the cheese. The problem is I can eat cheese like it's cheese. I can just take the brick of cheese and eat it and just chew on it and eat it like it's cookies. And it's just because I'm like that. And at any rate, feta is a very sharp, very dominating taste that I wouldn't want to put on a casserole, partly because of the taste, but partly because I'm not sure how it would react and melt, for example. But I'm also not, but also because it's expensive. Like it is actually expensive. It's expensive and it's somebody else's stuff. So I wouldn't do that. But so I did kind of want this experience, but I put bacon on top. I put bacon on top because, as I've said before, I need bacon. Now I haven't had it in a little while, but I'm not going to assume that everything's going to be okay. I'm going to put bacon back into my life. So I just threw strips on top like it was cheese. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll throw it in. I'll just bake it. Apparently, that's not the correct thing to do. See, the problem with being smart is sometimes you think you're smart and maybe it's the weirdest experience being like, I understand this stuff already. But in reality, no. And reality slapped me because when I opened, like I finished my 25 minutes at 250 degrees in the oven. I opened the oven door. It's not cooked because it's bacon and bacon requires some pretty serious heat. I don't know what that heat is because I'm used to just pan frying it. And I went, okay, well, I did something wrong. So I turned up the heat a bit, but I don't know what heat to use. So I went and looked at recipes. I should have done that in the first place, but they were all recipes for like oven frying it open on the rack with like tinfoil, one shelf down, and all this kind of stuff. And all of those temperatures, I'm like, oh, 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, does my cookware do that? Because that sounds like a big number. I think my cookware can do that. And I go and I check. I'm like, oh, like I go to Starfrit and I look to see what their pots are rated at. Like, oh, nowhere near that. Oops, run upstairs, turn it down, run downstairs. Wait a second. Does bacon really need to be at that temperature? Like, well, let me look at It's like in the joke in the, well, okay, it's not a joke. So in the United States, they go to one doctor and the doctor says, like, here's $30,000 and whatever the heck, you have a cough, you need this stuff. And they're like, well, second opinion. So they go someplace else. And like for getting braces or something like that, right? Now, for me, for the recipe, I went, well, maybe. And I go and I look at a different recipe. And this other recipe is like 350. I'm like, 350, that's good. That's good. My bakeware can do like 392. That's a really specific number. That's 200 Celsius. That's why. And I'm just thinking in terms of Fahrenheit because I don't want to fiddle with my oven and have it tell me things in Celsius. Partly because it doesn't really matter too much, but partly because other people use it and other people will read things in Fahrenheit as well. So like I'm not going to make the decision on behalf of other people. It would be kind of a household decision to set the oven to be, it's like setting your thermostat one way. And it's, for some reason, it has to be a setting buried in a menu or some function with multiple keys and stuff like that. And so it's not convenient for the next user of the thing to switch it to the temperature type they like. So I just leave it at freedom units and just walk away. So my house, it's like, my house has to be below 80 degrees Fahrenheit in the summertime, right? Or I'll die. just I'll die. Our air conditioning broke down one year. I'm like, well, I guess I'm living in the bathtub for a while. And I know there are going to be listeners. Like, I know I've got a friend in Texas who'd be like, what? It's more than that in the shade. It's like, yeah. And I don't understand how humans survive down there. Sorry. I can't even visit. I can't even visit him. This is never going to happen. I have to wait until winter when it snows. It kind of snows like once. Once a generation, there is snow. I'm surprised they don't have like fairy tales with that. Like 1800s fairy tales that talks about like mythologically has snow stories and something like that. This one time when it was slightly damp and white out, like little Billy and Jane got lost in the, they don't have forests there, do they? Man, some places in the United States are just odd. Anyway, we're coming up on a break, and when we come back, I'll probably talk about potato salad. well, until I'm done with food. So we'll be back in about, 17 minutes.
Okay.
See you then.
All right. Well, we're back.
We are indeed back. This is 2020-09-27, episode number 22. So hello, lurkers and bots. I guess this is the food episode. Because I want to talk about that pierogies that I pulled out of the oven. And I guess the bacon is done. It changed color. It tastes pretty good. I mean, it was in there at the wrong temperature for like almost a half an hour and then at the right temperature. But the thing is, it wasn't on a grill. It wasn't like frying in the oven. And there's plenty of moisture that was there coming up from the pasta sauce and all this stuff. But it's good and I haven't died yet. So, I'm not going to do it like this again. I'm probably going to bake it separately. Bacon in. I
don't think I would notice if you died.
I'd just be in my. It's like, hey, I haven't seen him around. I feel strangely free. What is this weird feeling? It's like my bondage has been lifted. Like, Master, it's given me socks and died. So I'm eating it. I try it. It's okay. I mean, I don't like bacon, but it's okay. It actually is a pasta experience, but it's potatoes. So the pierogies are potatoes with cheese inside. So there's my cheese, I suppose. Can't taste it. The sauce, I can't really taste it. It's not, there is sauce. It's tomatoey, but it absolutely does not have anything like the spice it had before. Like if it was just a pasta sauce, even if it was a pasta sauce that was mixed with pasta and refrigerated. So yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good. I think I can add this. I mean, I've got like 10 cans left of the pasta sauce, so I'm going to run out of pierogies before I run out of sauce. So I'm going to do this some more. I think I do like the pierogies pan-fried. I pan-fry them in ghee. This is Indian style clarified butter. I'm too lazy to make the clarified butter myself, but it's great because I've had it for like a couple of months. I just bought this huge jar. I don't know what you call it, because its jars are like glass, so it's one of these big plastic things. And I just transferred it to mason jars. Those are glass, and I still have a little, oh man, like 250 milliliter, like the miniature size of mason jars. And at any rate, it's pierogies are much better when they're nice and crispy that way. It's much better to use ghee than something. I only have olive oil. I don't cook with anything else ever. And olive oil has a low smoking point, and olive oil is not appropriate for doing a lot of frying related stuff. So it doesn't work with the pierogies because it's going to smoke if you're not careful and all this kind of stuff. And good olive oil has a taste, has a flavor to it. It doesn't tend to really include itself in a meal, but if it's on the surface of pierogies, then you're going to have a little bit of the taste before you get into even the shell of it. I guess the skin of it is wheat. I'm not sure, and the inside is maybe the outside is actual potato. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to look this up because I don't know if I have a gluten thing or if it's just pasta or or what the heck is going on, but I have to start cutting out some entire class of food. I talked to a dietitian at this one point, and she's like, shrug. I have no idea. But if you don't die, it's okay. But know yourself and understand how to. So it's a bunch of waffling. A shrug. Like I don't like going to a professional, having the professional use a bunch of words. I just want that person to go, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And then start it from there. And it goes, I don't know, but everybody acts a little differently. And if you learn this about yourself, and yeah, I'll talk to some people and they're actually like that. They're actually open and honest. And other professionals are like, it's like they want to seem smart. It just doesn't matter to me. I'll just give them the deadpan stare. Like, please stop talking down to me. It's confusing. Please. They can't talk up to me because they know more than me. That's why I'm going to somebody. While I'm there, I totally want to share this perspective. So there's something called a wealthy perspective, and it's something that gets instilled upon the youths, the children of the already wealthy. So this is old gold stuff. This is people that are born into money. What's the expression? These are trust fund babies. And there's an actual perspective in there that says when you go to somebody like a doctor or a lawyer, to anybody, always keep in mind that you're not going there for their help per se. They are there to serve you. It's at a restaurant. The staff are there for you. It's never going to be the other way around. You're never going to go to a doctor, to some professional, and want their help like that. That's not the perspective. The perspective is you're hiring that person. They're performing a service for you. So get the most out of it, right? So you go to a doctor, that the doctor is on staff for you. It is one of your employees. Take advantage of all that expertise. And so ask all the questions you've got, get on top of that and get the most of it. And a lot of people are the other way around. They have a kind of poor perspective where they see these as grand oracles that they go to appease for the advice. When they're not going to get as much as they could. They're going to ask little mouse questions, little things, and not get the full advantage of the wealth of knowledge that could be possible if they were just bold enough to. It's not diminishing somebody else's potential to think of them as an employee. Your doctor is literally your employee because you are. Well, it's a little weird in Canada. So in the United States, you are paying the salary. You're actually paying a fee to be but serve is really not quite the right word. But it's the word we can map over, except we map it over to like a restaurant server and stuff like that, and that's absolutely not the case. Like you never want to insult the amount of effort and even money / debt that some professional has gone through in order to be good enough to work for you. At any rate, that's what was it? I was talking about potatoes. Yeah. Speaking of potatoes, there's this potato salad that I fell in love with, so I'm buying a lot of it and I'm looking at the ingredients, and it's just they're all good ingredients. Like there's no nasty, unpronounceable stuff in this potato salad. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna Minion, you know me. I have none left.
Already?
I know.
We went 2 days ago.
Exactly.
Was it 2 days ago? 3 days ago, and you bought 2 tubs.
Yeah, and I think they're 1.2 kilogram. So that would be what, like 2 pounds? 2.5 pounds? Something like that?
A good amount either way.
Per container, right? So I literally ate bowls of them. Now, I ate them because I liked it. And I ate them all before I looked at the ingredients, which was a good thing. You know, I liked it, so fingers crossed I'm going to eat it all. And then I'm going to discover if it's bad for me or not. I didn't want I didn't want to eat it just because I had to finish it and know that it was bad for me. Okay, and it's still bad for you because it's got like mayonnaise in it, which is not the best.
2 containers and then you read it.
Yeah. So I did things a little bit backwards just because I didn't want to waste the food. It turns out I think they were just a little bit less than $9 for that each. So I have no problems making that a part of my life again. I will be buying that every single time we go past that particular grocery store. And the reason I went overboard, first off, it's my personality to actually eat a whole lot of a thing that I'm exposed to if I like it, and until I'm out. And I'm hoping to overcome this quirk one day, but it doesn't really matter. At any rate, it was important to experience this.
Doesn't matter. I can quit any time. I can slow down my habit.
I can quit the potato salad.
Tilting head.
Shake.
Tilting head.
So in this particular case, what I was exploring is a replacement staple, because pasta was to be a staple, and I can't eat it anymore. I don't think I can eat it anymore even as a side, partly because I don't think I can have it as a side just because of my nature, right? I don't know how to eat just a little bit of something. I just make a meal of the thing. Now, and I was thinking casseroles and stuff like that for the pasta, and I could have variation, but I can't. I'm cutting it right out. There might be nuances that I don't understand, but I'm just cutting it out right now. So I was looking at replacing it with other things. I suspect rice is no good for me because I had this amazing, it's called dal in rice. So what it is it's lentils that have been essentially boiled down into a paste if it's done right, and I add roasted cumin in it. It's really good. It's really simple, and I just put that on rice. And that was part of my diet, and I think I had some mood issues associated with that. So again, I think something's weird. That could be something separate for all I know, but I'm not going to go back there. Minion, I probably have a huge bag of rice for you too, but at least you eat rice. But this is basmati, so that might be a little weird for you because it has flavor. It's not as bad as brown basmati, which will dominate a dish unless you really know what you're doing. I gave this to a French chef that I knew, and he's like, he tried it at a meal, he went, and gave me the bag back. I defeated him. But I mean, this is an Indian dish, and you're giving it to a French chef. It's like, shrug. What does he know about this particular ingredient? He tried, went like, I don't know. It would pair really well with Indian food, obviously, because this is kind of the popular stuff there. It would pair really well because you've got really potent sauces that float on the rice, whereas the stuff that this guy was used to is like the pilaf. It would soak into the rice, and it would enhance the flavor of the rice. It wouldn't. The sauces would not be meant to dominate over the rice as such. But in the Indian use of it, absolutely. And you'd have like chicken or something like that with it. And at any rate, So I wanted to see if potato was something that I could replace as a staple. I have not felt so good in so long. Now, I'm not sure if that's just a rebound because, I feel bad, and then there's the natural upswing after quitting, quote unquote, quitting the pasta. There's the natural swing up, and it's just like so if you have an off day, you come back from work, you had a terrible day, drama in your life, whatever the heck, it rains on your parade. When you get back to normal, from going down to being normal seems like a massive boost. And I was thinking to myself earlier that when that happens, you must take the fullest advantage of that is humanly possible. Like, stop doing your everyday boring stuff. Like, you go back to normal, and normal would mean boring. Normal would be coasting. Normal would be whatever. Don't go back to that. Go back, like, even though technically speaking, everything is just normal again, feel that shift in perspective and take it as something, and really. So I've talked about the 80-20 time, and I'll just keep doing that because that's a philosophy in life that's important for everybody. Think of those moments as being 20-80 time instead. And just use that as the time to absolutely optimize as much of your life as possible, like go cleaning, whatever the heck. At any rate, I don't know if it's a potato salad or if it's that little rebound, but it was absolutely incredible. I got back to writing, and it's been... Wow, it's been like 8 months since I've...
You sound a bit energetic.
You
sound a bit happy.
Well...
energetically happy.
Well, I mean, right now I'm not what I was even. I wasn't interacting with you like a couple of days ago when I was really doing this and really cleaning and really, all this kind of thing. So you don't know the half of it. So if I actually correct my mood, like... How do I say this? So I don't intend to either be arrogant about myself or to be disrespectful for others. Okay, so now obviously I can disrespect you, Minion, because you have no respect for yourself, etc. So I'm just agreeing with you. So we understand concepts like smart. Now, the general understanding that humanity has is wrong for this kind of stuff. So I'm not actually talking about these kinds of things. I'm comparing you to yourself. Like, each individual listener, you should compare yourself with yourself, not with other people, because individuals are a thing. Like, how much do I have to stress? Like, stop. Man, demographic trends, especially when comparing things like aptitude, is the most unhealthy thing that a person could ever do. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so I want you to imagine that. So I'm judging myself for myself. I'm not comparing me to other people. So when I correct my diet, I get smarter. Okay? Now, people don't understand something like IQ at all, especially the people that invented the concept and test for it. And as reliable as it is, it's a horrifying concept that nobody likes. It just happens to be testably real, which is really inconvenient. But I understand, like, smart people invented the IQ test. How strange is that? So of course it's going to be weird and skewed, and they have a massive blind spot. But you know yourself. So I know myself. I went, I'm dumb. It's like a disability when I eat the wrong food. My brain didn't work live on air. I was talking about the subject, understanding the subject, and still subject to the thing, and I went off and got mad. Like, literally in the middle of the stream, I cut out some, like, last show, which is going up today, I think, that particular show, I think it's episode 17, something like this, is going up live right now. And I had
tomorrow.
Sorry?
Tomorrow.
It's okay. So it's going up tomorrow. I actually had to clip out, like, I almost swore, like, this kind of stuff. I was really mad. And it's it's a strange thing to have this kind of blind spot. You can know a thing, you can have it written down, but actually enacting it in life, uh, it turns out to be it. It turns out that you can know something like deep in your heart, but actually enacting it in the world is a really difficult thing, as it turns out. And why? Who knows, right? Who knows? And it's just something that a person matures into, hopefully. Hopefully. I mean, it didn't for me, and I've kind of known something was weird for a while. At any rate, I was dumb. Like, I probably would have been testably, well, I would say testably lower IQ. So for, that's not the right perspective. So it would be, I can't remember what the other word is. Like, without getting weird. Okay, so men are dumb around women. I don't know if anybody's figured that out yet. I think everybody knows this, but we don't really want to talk about it. But men are testably dumber than women. Dumber around women. It's kind of an awful thing. At any rate, I could have been testably dumber at that point, but the bounce back, it's like having multiple points of IQ added on, and it's the most odd experience. Like, everything brightens, all your plans make sense, you can write down all your notes, you can pursue all your goals. And I suppose this is one of the components of drug addiction. Okay. And I know where I just went. Okay. So motivation in life presents these opportunities, these, it's not enlightenment, because that's not what people think, but these moments of clarity can happen to a person. And there is a sort of, high is not the right word. Like, high in a spiritual sense, okay, fine. Okay? That's probably a healthier perspective. There is a kind of uplifting experience, and it is right next to addiction, right? In fact, it might be a healthy perspective to entertain that. That's kind of the darker side of things. As weird as it sounds, the darkness kind of rises with that enlightened feeling. Now, so you play in the dark a little bit to make that mood change, that excitement change, that essentially what is an IQ change. So you do something, you break off that toxic relationship, and you feel really good all of a sudden because you really were dumb for a while, or damaged or whatever. And then that high that happens, it may just be back to normal, but there's almost a moment when you can reach through into that little shaded area and make it an addicting experience. And something like that has to happen in order to take the positive things in your life and actually reinforce them. And this is why people have mantras and things like this that are meant to help humans are animals. Like, I understand the idea of us being enlightened and all this kind of stuff. That's a wonderful illusion. And we've got a lot of things that are unique and special to us. Fine. Like, I don't really care, but we have the ability to modify ourselves by will. Whether or not that happens externally or not, boy, is that a deep, dark conversation that I don't want to have ever, because trying to explain that things are nuanced and gray is really upsetting to far too many people. But you know yourself, and so you can train yourself. There are several weird notions of perspective that you can have with yourself, and one of them is that you are essentially this dumb thing that you have to train to act in certain ways. And you do that by finding those good moments, seeing the rest of your life being whatever inefficient, a disaster for all it matters, and then being like, okay, well, and what you do is you shape your life with that hopefully 2080 time, like hopefully that moment of passion, and make your life better for your future self. Now, that which usually means cleaning up the disaster of your past self, which maybe it was 100% zero thing where you had absolutely no brain space. You were never in a good place to actually optimize anything to fix your life. You were just surviving. So when you find that moment of clarity, take that to undo all that damage and set up some tiny little molehill for your for your future self to improve upon, hopefully. Just kind of start that going forward. And yes, this is totally related to potatoes. It actually is. How very strange. Okay, anyhow, moving on from food.
Well, for you, it's related to potatoes. For others, it's a bit different.
I suppose for others, it could, like for you, it's as simple as when your sleep is fixed, it needs to stay fixed forever. You're going to find benefits that are going to happen, such as not bothering other people who are trying to sleep, right? You're going to find these benefits. You need to latch onto them, kind of like a life preserver, and keep that going forward as an accomplishment for your future selves. And there's a lot of stuff that you would do. You do the work. Oh, it's raining out. I can't do this stuff. Do it anyway. Suffer. Because your future self is going to thank you for doing that for it. Right? And you have experienced, I had you experience the cloning concept so you can be introduced to your past selves. You just need to keep that going and learn that your present self is the servant of your future self, and that you are creating all of the resources that that person is going to need. You are a servant to all the passions, all the hopes and dreams of that other person. And that when that's done, you will begin inheriting all those things. All these things will already be done for you. Like you will have had a servant for you, constantly helping you from the past of your timeline. And you will have 2 of you, 3 of you. And so if you do the bed thing one day, right? Like I get to laugh at you every single night that I go to sleep. I will laugh at you in my head because I accomplished something in no time flat and you're still dreaming about it, right? I went from giving you the idea and letting you start working on it to like, hey, maybe I should do this myself, and then doing it and then benefiting from it. And now my future selves going forward has, like I said, 6 square feet of floor space more that I can now, like, I have a treasure chest that I can actually bring out from storage under my desk collecting dust. I haven't talked on the show about my treasure chest. I totally could. Oh man. Yeah, that's exciting. Okay. So when I was a kid, I've always wanted to have a treasure chest. Not necessarily like a pirate treasure chest, but totally a pirate treasure chest. And one of the things you could do is, so back in my day, we had like debit and credit cards, but we didn't rely on it in the same sense as now. And so we still had cash and coins, and Canada got rid of the penny, for example. But coins were very much in use back then. Cash was still very much in use. And so one of the things that I did, which was the most wonderful experience, is you ritualize. So I had the water the cup experience, which is if you want to drink more water to be healthier, if you want to provide for your future self, give him or her a solid, healthy body. Like if you want to have that yourself now, you have to make that for yourself for your future self. And one of the ways of, say, drinking more water is ritualizing it. So you get a special cup that is yours for water. Maybe it's hard to get, maybe it's expensive, whatever. It's the thing for that task. And then you do it. So I got a thing for the task of collecting the shiniest coins I could. And I wasn't judging. It was just beautiful, brand new coins. And the dollar, the loonie in Canada, the $1 coin came out. And they were all shiny new. It had been around for a little while, so you get dull ones. But there were beautiful, newly minted coins. And then later the $2 coin. The toonie, which I was crossing my fingers. I really hoped that people would start calling it the doubloon. Because it's a double loonie, because it's $2. But no, that stinks. And I was kind of hoping that people would call like the 2000s the naughties. because in Britain they call zero naught. At any rate, so I collected kind of a treasure chest of all these beautiful brand new coins. At one point, I ended up spending them all because I was moving and I didn't want to have this weight around, and so I had like a little. It was okay. So I'm a big guy. So if you were to open your hand flat with your fingers together, I had a container that was bigger than that. It was made of bone, and so it was a beautiful, like, from Africa fair trade container with a lid, and it was full of shiny coins, and I could open it and go like, oh, it was a thing. It was like a little, not quite a pirate's chest, but it was something I made that I invested in, that has a feeling attached to it. Okay, and that's one thing. But what I ended up doing is I always want to have the equivalent, but having it in a tabletop role-playing sense, which is I have a chest. I literally got a chest. It's hilarious, but it's not a chest. It's just like a little square. I could sit on it, right? But it's got a little opening panel at the top with a hinge that it can hang open. And I filled it with dice. Not like they're in packs, but dice. And I ended up shopping with a lot of stuff in China, and I ended up kind of developing a relationship with one of the manufacturers to get more of a certain issue of dice that I got like a random pack from a place and went, oh, because some of them were just, I knew when you get a random collection of stuff from somewhere, most of it's going to be garbage, right? That's how they get rid of some of the stuff. But you don't want necessarily to spend all the money, because we're not all that rich. You don't necessarily want to spend all the money to just look at all of one thing and buy a lot of this and this and this and this. Getting a variety pack would at least let you see some of the rarer things without spending entirely on a pack of those rare things. And I'll totally get into that in a sec. Now, so I bought variety and then went, whoa, this particular one is just beautiful. Like kind of the mother of pearl look to it. And I went shopping through the place and went, I can't find this anywhere in the entire, like, AliExpress, right? I ended up contacting the manufacturer of the variety pack and giving pictures and be like, do you have more like of this? Like, how do I? And it's one of those, well, you might think that this is a strange thing to do. Like, you're contacting some big company somewhere, but that company works for me. That's not the perspective that I had in my head, but it's just the thing that I happen to act out in the world. It's just some guy. Like, I have contacted musicians. I have contacted plenty of, like, just the company. And they're just people at the other end. They might be big and powerful and important and all this stuff, but, I will call that. I will call that store. I will call that whatever the heck. Not a big deal. Okay, so I did that. I ended up getting a lot of dice in like little bags, and some of them are really rare. Some of them are really expensive. And I'm not even, like, I don't know that we're going to do in-person tabletop role-playing anytime again soon, which is such a shame. And I don't know that I'll do it online. And so I've got that, and I'm like, okay, well, I legit want actual treasure now. So I started buying artificial gems. And unfortunately, a lot of them turn out to be glass, which is something that I'm learning. There's actually water droplet tests that you can do to learn if something is glass or not. And I double checked that this is true because I have a really, really nice watch that has one of the panes of glass on. So it's one of these watches where you can see the mechanics. If you flip it over, you can see the actual well, mechanics is the right word, actually. So you can see all the gears and stuff as it's operating. It's pretty common now. It was kind of cool and rare at the time. And it's got, the glass on either side. So you can see the back and obviously so you can see the face of it. But one of them is actual sapphire. And the other turns out to be glass. So the one facing your wrist is just glass because it doesn't get scratched because it's on your wrist. And the other is sapphire. And I know it's sapphire because I put this thing down face first because it's sapphire, and the stainless steel is scratched, but the sapphire isn't. That's how durable this stuff is. So I can put it down and I'd be more worried about scratching the surface than I would about the sapphire, because it's just the only thing that gets harder than it is effort, like pinpricks and effort of stuff. You can scratch anything if you just try. And then diamond. And I tend to not bump into diamonds, so not a big deal. You know, unless I'm pairing some violent lady with her diamond wedding ring, I'm probably okay. So I can actually water droplet on both sides. And the one on the sapphire, the water beads up and does not get it wet. I can just drip, look at it, and it will just bead up completely, and I can tilt and it will just run off with no droplets, because the water will more stick to itself. So it'll actually, instead of having the snail trail of water droplets behind it, it will absorb the snail trail rather than let it go. So it does that and it just runs off. It's really easy to see. And if you put a droplet on the other side, it won't beat up so much. If you tilt it, it'll leave a little trail of water. So that's how you can tell the difference between sapphire and glass. And so you can do that on an artificial gem if it's large enough and if it's got that one facet that's big enough for you to put a drop on, you can tell. And so I've done that, but the thing is, you shake it around. I do have, like, they're little, but they're actual in the shape of treasure chests. And I'll fill one with gems. It's a little expensive, but I'm gonna try to do that with at least one. Yeah, but it rattled around and it chipped a bunch of them. They're all glass. Of course they're all glass. If it was sapphire on sapphire, it wouldn't shatter like that. You wouldn't have little corners broken off. If it's glass, yeah, it did, which is a shame. Now, you can go to thrift stores and you can buy like old rings and old necklaces and stuff like that. Some of them are really cheap. Maybe it's made of steel or something like that. It's just some ornamental thing. And it looks cool, so you can have that in a pile. And the idea is you can have your players running out and their characters defeat the bad guy and get the treasure, and you can have actual treasure for them. So I had this kind of idea in mind. And then what I decided to do is I learned that you can purchase semi-precious stones online. Now, it's a little bit hard to understand, a little bit hard to do, a little bit hard to get consistency, and nowadays shipping is expensive. But I did this in its heyday. So I got to learn about semi-precious stones, which is kind of an interesting hobby to have for a while. I don't have it memorized, but I wrote little notes for every single little pack of stuff that I got. Try to understand. I learned what I like, because I knew I liked tiger's eye for some reason. And but I didn't quite remember what it looked like. Man, you get some of these, again, semi-precious, but oh, they're so beautiful. Oh, they're absolutely incredible. And some of them, I didn't know that certain varieties existed, like blue tiger's eye. Get some blue tiger's eye and actually look at it in the real world. It's not like you're going to get pictures of it. It is absolutely spectacular. Video these days, you're probably going to get a good representation of it. But the light plays off of some of these so well. Oh, it's so nice. So I've got a whole lot of a bunch of different kinds. And I only recently really settled on one particular style. And the idea is that you can hand these out as little chips of treasure, and they can be representations of stuff. Even if I was playing a card game, at one point I'm like, well, how many pieces is it in a checkers set? Well, why don't I just get a checkers set worth of 2 different colors of this kind of stone? Because they're about the right size. Like, well, the hematite's a little big, actually. That's the one thing that I don't like. But everything else I could get in a bunch of different, well, quote unquote colors. But they're actual semi-precious stones. And they're big. And so they're tangible. They're not tiny little rocks or cubes, or they're not meant for jewelry. They don't have holes through them, so they're pendants or anything. They're just rocks, and they're smooth, and they're just gorgeous. So I actually have several sets of checkerboard pieces that are semi-precious stones. Man, and I have it's like the childhood dream, right? I have a chest over there, and I clean my room, put my bed up on stilts, was able to push a lot of bins out of the way, and now I've got the reward for doing this. I can sit in the middle of my floor, pull my treasure chest out, open it like a little child, I should probably put LED lights in there so it goes, ah, and just lights things up. Like, what is that, Indiana Jones style, but without the face melting? Or Pulp Fiction style, I suppose I could, with the briefcase. And it's just like pull out my little, like, dude, it's treasure. How awesome is that? Yeah, so I'm really happy about that kind of stuff. So there are things that you can do to take advantage of moods, to get certain things done, and the reward is probably unknowable. Your future self will thank you for having taken the effort to not do the 80%, to do less of that, to really take advantage of the 20, to really take advantage of the hope, the potential that you had when coming back from a swing. So when you take full advantage of what you're capable of, you will forever forward get the benefit of. So, okay. So I want to talk briefly about vitamin D. I had talked about it before. Vitamin D is one of the few things that a person can do either proactively or during something like a respiratory illness. And understanding these things happens to be important for the times. And I'm a fairly technical person, as doctors will get annoyed by. And so I understood early on about it, and I know about the papers, and I know all this kind of stuff. Now, I have not been paying attention to the times for some time now. And so I'm getting on with life, and the intrigue is gone. Like there's an expression for this. The minion. So when people get married, they have like moonlighting. They go on vacation.
The honeymoon phase.
That's right. So
the honeymoon phase.
Yeah. So the honeymoon phase of the times is over for me. I'm no longer excited or interested in it. I mean, it's not part of the show. It shouldn't be. Not politics, not any socially sensitive. I'm sorry, I'm done. I get on with life. Like no. A lot of people want to involve themselves in things that are greater than them. And good, fine, healthy. I really don't care. But it doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to be effective if you haven't worked on yourself properly. If you're done working on yourself, if the return on investment for working on yourself becomes diminished enough, you can start taking that effort. It's like paying off your debt. You start becoming wealthy and you can donate if you actually have the money to. It's like, so if you sit there and if you care, and you care in terms of money, and you think giving money solves problems, which it doesn't. You got problems if you think that. Like, you don't have money to give. So if you work on yourself and your debts so that you have money, the more adamant you are about that, the more committed you are, the more you reduce your personal debt, is the sooner and the more wealth you have to put towards something you care about, right? So there are a lot of people that care already externally too much. They haven't worked on themselves enough to actually be a competent person to help with some cause or whatever the heck, right? Like, don't go volunteering if you don't have time for yourself. Like, have time for yourself until you've done what you want in life, until you start working on dumb things that don't really matter as much to you, and then be like, okay, well, you know what? I've been wasting my time on the couch watching TV when I should have been working on these things that matter to me spiritually, let's say. Like, I should be going and doing these things. I should be going and that becomes a more fulfilling return on investment than this other stuff. That's how people should work. And so anyway, vitamin D. So one of the things that I was curious about is, first off, is there going to be a problem with accessibility to vitamin D? So I got access to a bunch. And it was really cheap. And it was remarkably really cheap, so much so that I'm going to stock up. Actually, I've got a container right here. Okay. Expires 07/2024. You are correct if you want to think that I'm going to get 4 years worth of this stuff. Okay? I'm going to probably get I'm probably going to get less than that because there's more than like, each one of these containers has like 360 pills. But one of the things I wanted to know about, because I love the technical stuff, is, well, we make the assumption that vitamin D, pardon me, is associated with sunlight, and that is now a dangerous thought to think. Okay, it may well be true. It is less true than people realize, and it's less true due to the realities of physics and biology. Some people will generate more vitamin D than others in sunlight. As a beige person, this is a fact I must understand. And I don't run around topless. So I'm not going to sunbathe in the backyard. That's an absolute disaster that I'm going to keep bringing up in the future. Okay, so what I wanted to know is, with this, well, first, is there different kinds of vitamin D? And is it any good to take in an artificial form? Should I think about food? It's really rare in foods. Okay, so how much can I take? There are other things where if you take a bottle full, you're going to die. Or hopefully you're going to throw up and feel really, really bad, or feel bad enough to need hospitalization. And, hopefully. Okay, well, this is right. How much do I take? Well, the bottle will say 1 or 2 a day kind of thing. Well, yeah, but come on, how much can I take? And so I actually went, hey, it's me. I went to the Canadian government. I'm Canadian. So I went to the Canadian government and I found the officially recognized research and paperwork regarding daily recommended dosages. And specifically, those recommendations do get into the very technical. Oh man, I just wanted to know a number. Like, hey, government, how much of this can I take a day? I just want them to say 1,000. I'd be like, okay, fine, 1,000. So I had to slog through like, oh, if you'd like to view this PDF, you can log in for free. And like, I don't want to log in. I just want to look at it. Hey, government, why is this being offered in a hardcover version for $60 Canadian? Why this is just knowledge that citizens should have access to. Oh, I can get a PDF by logging in. Why do I have to make a login for this? That's just stupid. Okay, I can view it online for free. It's a little hard, but I can do it. So I poke through, and boy, did I have to work to actually get the number. It's just a little table of, and it's a different recommendation. If you go to Wikipedia, okay, please feel free to go to Wikipedia for your knowledge. Whatever. They'll give you some numbers, and they'll be badly sourced and old, and so you learn that. So the Wikipedia I go to happens to be the English language Wikipedia, which means primarily it is going to be American, which is a real shame since America is all American about stuff. So I'm not going to get proper knowledge for a lot of things. So I had to find references for the Canadian stuff. And it turns out the recommendations are different between, I think it's that page had the United States, Canada, and Australia. I think it had those 3. It might have had more. I didn't check because I kind of stopped caring once I hit Canada. So I went to Canada and learned, and it's something like 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams a day. I'm like, okay, well, I got pills of 1,000. I'm going to look at it carefully. 1,000 IU. IU/UI because Canada's got French as well. And I'm like, wait a second, 25 mcg. Like, wait. But the recommended dosage is in mg. So is it, and I'm like, okay, now I have to understand my units and stuff like that. So mcg is the same as mg, as I understand. I'll have to double check, of course. But the pills that I got, they're 25. So I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm nowhere near the toxicity levels that they have determined. This is great. But, well, how much of this should I be taking then for it to matter for respiratory, let's say defense, or, for bolstering yourself? Because that's the actual science is very limited, but they're the only actual science for something that an everyday person can do for respiratory stuff, either as defense or as for recovery or for fighting anything off, is vitamin D. That's the only thing that exists that's understood right now. But again, I'm slightly out of date. So how much do I take? Shrug. But at least I'm going to add a couple of pills into my daily regimen of all kinds of other stuff. I've talked about vitamin E being magic for my voice. It might just be not eating pasta anymore, not eating carbs anymore, but I think it's the vitamin E. So it's all this kind of stuff. As you get old, you should probably have vitamin C or calcium for osteoporosis, and vitamin D to help you process that, etc., etc. So I'm taking a bunch of stuff because it's not that expensive, and I'm concerned about my health a little bit more. Even though a lot of people are like, you take vitamins, you're just going to have funny colored pee, which is true, but not nearly as true as people would think. And I actually no longer have funny pee from taking vitamins, so my body is actually using this stuff, I think. Things are weird and complicated. Anyway. Trust in products is a challenging thing because everybody that wants to sell you something, it, technically speaking, wants to get away with tricking you to purchase their stuff, and they want to hide from the responsibility of, they want to hide from the accountability, which is, so technically speaking, possibly all of vitamins would do nothing. For all anybody knows, and our assumption is that somebody must know, somebody must check this stuff. But do you know for sure? Has somebody checked? Have you gone and looked to see if, say, your government, if you trust your government's research, has even looked into the value of taking a multivitamin, for example? Bring it up to your doctor. At least that's a good start. I've got access to a dietitian as well, so I could bring it up to her, although I care more about food when I'm talking to her about diet. There's a lot of stuff she just doesn't understand, but the girl I've got access to, she's wonderful. She's actually, I don't know the details because I haven't looked into the field, but she actually had she got into debt a little bit more to get some additional information, some additional knowledge. So there's a minimum standard that Canada has in order to recognize a dietitian. And that's not true in all places. So Canada actually takes it pretty seriously. And she did that, and she did a little bit more to make her resume really good. That's why she was hired at the physiotherapist place that I go to because of my back recommended her. So she's actually attached to them because, physiotherapy and diet are kind of together. If somebody wants to walk again because they've been in a wheelchair for a while and they're all healed up, well, it isn't just the physiotherapy that matters. It's also, the diet and nutrition and stuff like that. They should also have a psychologist, but, that's the complete package of helping the mind out as well as the body, as well as the diet. So, welcome back to our final segment. We actually need to have these cards say when or maybe have an overall show timer and then have the cards say what segment we're on. This would be segment 3 out of 3. Welcome back to our not particularly wholesome but apolitical thing, the only non-political podcast in the world. Okay, so I talked about vitamin D last. I'm done with that. I actually want to talk about, we're going to get into Administrivia, and I've got a huge amount of stuff to talk about. But it's boring. It's boring, and there's interesting stuff that I want to go over. Obviously, I can save stuff for next show, and I have been. That's so awesome. Okay. I want to talk about laces. And I know, so I have talked about in the past the importance of looking at everyday things in your life and not letting them be background. Actually spending some time trying to understand and trying to optimize these things. I mean, my example was getting silk sheets. Like, you sleep a lot. You spend a lot of money on your waking life in order to make it more comfortable, in order to, sometimes just to cope. Like I said earlier, buying luxury things when you're poor just to cope. A lot of people will do things like that. They will eat a good lunch, but they don't think in terms of optimizing sleep, even though we sleep that often. We sleep all the time for a while, but not many people take the money that they invest in improving their waking life and take some of it and try to improve their sleeping life. Get a good mattress, get good sheets, figure it out, right? Figure it out. Have a really nice shower experience before going to bed. Understand, just get a good alarm clock that doesn't shock you so much, but jostles you to sleep, jostles you awake. Get an alarm clock that turns the lights on well ahead of time before making sound. So maybe you'll just gently be nudged awake. Learn you. Okay, so laces. And the reason I needed to understand laces is I have had for the longest time a pair of boots. And I got these boots. I didn't know what I wanted, but I went to some people that I knew, and they were in the United States. And, recommendations and friends, and these are good people. And I went to them when, I want some boots. And I looked at they no longer do this kind of thing. But at the time, I looked through their store, their meager offerings, and I found a pair of boots that I liked. I'm like, whoa, buy it for life. Even back then, I understood. You get a really nice pair of boots. It'll just last you. And I was sick and tired of having cold and wet sneakers in wintertime, right? And so I got these boots, and I'm like, okay, well, I've heard all these stories about boots that are too big, or too tight, so I got boots that are big. They're one size too big. And that was probably a bad idea, and now knowing what I do know, I'm pretty sure that was a bad idea. But regardless, my feet never fit in there. And I managed to get them in, and you're supposed to wear them until they break in, and that just wasn't happening, and it was really hurting my feet. I tried all kinds of stuff. I was smart. I looked things up. I had tried different things. I was a little bit nervous because I didn't want to damage these things because they were expensive. And they were expensive in those days, dollars, which I don't know how. I know that there are more expensive boots these days. But I paid half again the cost of these boots just to deal with the fees to get them across the border. So I actually had them shipped from the United States, from that manufacturer, to these guys, from these guys up to me. And it was all manner of inconvenient and took a lot of time and had surprise payments and stuff like that. But wore these. I did try for a while. They ended up tearing the back of my heels and tearing them down until they were bleeding, until they bled through my socks. And you might think, well, you need to have proper boot socks and stuff like this. Okay, fine. This is true. So that's been on my one of the items on my Amazon wish list kind of thing, right? But I took another stab at it and went, okay, this isn't working out. And I learned at one point about I did some random research, and I learned some of the search terms, some of the language, and I learned that lacing matters. There's something called a runner's lock or a heel lock, and I've talked about this before. It's a way of lacing that pulls the shoe towards towards your toes, essentially, right? It essentially locks the back of the shoe right up against the back of your heel. And what that does is that prevents the kind of rubbing that I was experiencing that was damaging skin. And if you want to, you can find United Kingdom. So football players who have a lot of shoe concerns. So I found even recently a nice video on YouTube about this kind of thing. I'm not going to look it up, but you can find lots of stuff. And boots, turns out, was category of lacing. Now, I had originally discovered the heel lock stuff and applied it to have a pair of nice leather shoes. They have a hard back, and they would do the same thing. I think they've got like little sewing lines, like seams that can be a little raised out towards the ankle, towards the heel, and they can do damage that way. And and women experience this. So women appropriated men's high heels, which is for cavalry. And so women wear high heels all the time now, even though men kind of stopped because we're not cavalry so often anymore. So women wear these really awful shoes. I suppose it matters. If you want to say it's important for the culture of women, shrug. I don't care. I don't like the idea of having... I'm not attracted to a woman who has made herself uncomfortable to try to impress me. But heels are a thing, and so are awful, ill-fitting shoes. And I think of this exactly as the same. I respond to the problem of ill-fitting shoes the same way I respond to the lack of pockets. Like, why are you doing that to yourself? The market isn't manipulating you into buying this stuff. So, but women are in these terrible shoes. And it isn't that they're like finding comfortable shoes. They're finding ways of being more comfortable in terrible shoes. So that there are pads, and one woman is like, yeah, if you really want to fit to these heels, there's like this special lubricant you put on your heel. Like, what? Just wear normal shoes. Like, get a refund on those $250 shoes, and just wear sneakers. Like, oh, you need to wear nice shoes for that nice dress for going out. Like, oh, there are a few problems with that, but okay. Okay. So women understand feet stuff. It's different for shoes like this, and it's different with laced stuff. So there's ways of lacing. So I learned the ways of lacing, and they work just for the shoes, never for the boots. And so they've been sitting in the closet. I'm thinking, okay, well, you know what? I bought different little cheap Walmart boots last year, and they were great. And one of the barriers of me like just going out to play is good footwear. I'm like, okay, this year, no, I just need to pull these boots out of the closet, and I need to figure out how to make them work. And I found some boot spray, which actually softens the boots. And it actually works. Like, none of these crumpled up wet balls of paper thrown into the toes, and no baking them or hair dryer, wearing them with multiple pairs of socks, and nothing. You spray this on, inside and out, rub it on, wait 10 minutes, come back, do it again, put your foot in, walk around until it dries off, do it again. And half a bottle of this little spray, done. It fits. But it tears the heel off of my foot. On the right hand side, it's slightly the seam is slightly out, and it being one size too big gives room in the boot, and it's rubbing up against the back, particularly of my right heel, and it damaged it. I toughed it out going to the store and back, right? And I walked because I needed to have an excuse to walk while it's forming to my foot, while it's still kind of drying out. I did that. I suffered. I came back. I tore my heel off. So it's now mostly healed, which is great. I could put a bandage on it or something, and put the boot back on. But what I went looking for boot lacing to figure that out. I researched it again, and it turns out there really are other methods of lacing boots. I mean, obviously, right? Okay. And particularly, I was watching a video of a military man, a young man, actually, and he's just got a collection of boots. And he was going over his experience with different boots. And, okay, fine. I made this a minor hobby, derailing me from other stuff, but I was interested, and this really applied. And this was a thing that's a burden in my life for far too long. I just want to have these boots work, because I was ready to... I would probably throw them away because I'm such a first world idiot, but really I should just be donating them, right? And they're beautiful boots, so somebody would really appreciate them. And they're basically new. They're just collecting dust. Okay, so this guy was going over all kinds of boot-related stuff, which is like, wow, well, I bought the wrong kind of boots kind of thing. The buyer's regret. But other people started talking about lacing and different kinds of laces and different words, different names for all this stuff. And there's actually a totally alien way of lacing boots that I never would have thought of on my own. And that way is this heel lock with a different kind of loop that secures the laces down the front. And right, the magic is, so first, a boot has regular laces from the toe end all the way up to a kind of a joint. And then things change when they go up the leg. And I was thinking, well, they're changing just because lacing is a little like harder from that angle, and there's kind of a joint where there's a little gap between the lacing, the shoe style lacing and the boot style lacing. But here's what you do. And if I can describe it in words, then I understand it. So you do regular lacing, who cares? You can do specialized running lacing and stuff like that. So up from the toe up to that joint is what I'll call it. Now at that point, almost as though you're tying a knot there, but you're tying, so you loop left lace over right lace, but you wrap it around twice. You tie that tight. What that does is that tends to separate the bottom laces from what's going to happen with the top laces. And you tie that nice and tight, and then you take those laces, left and right, and you move them all the way up. You do nothing, no lacing through loops or hooks or anything like that. You just pull them all the way up to the top of your boots. And then you lace from top backwards. From top to down, you lace. And when it gets down to the very bottom, well, in my case, I have eyelets. I don't have hooks. And when I get down to the very bottom, you do that double twist. So you put left over right or right over left, who cares? You twist it around twice. You pull it nice and tight. And all the way, throughout all the lacing, you want it to be tight enough that you can't put your finger underneath the stitching, the lacing. And use that double loop. So your final knot is just a regular knot. Okay, so you do the little bunny ears. Because I don't really know how to tie my laces like normal people, because I'm weird. But you do the little bunny ear loop. Then but instead of doing that final tug, you do the bunny ear loop, and then you move the loop a second time. So that's how you do your knot. So you got this kind of extra annoying, thicker loop. And the reason you do that is if you look at hiking YouTube videos that talk about boot lacing, and if a lace gets snagged somewhere, but you're in gear, you've got a backpack on, you've got gloves on. If you snag your boot lace on something or just gets undone, having to disassemble everything in order to find a rock, because you have no mobility to even bend down, to actually go there and take your gloves off in the cold and figure out how to fix your boot laces, that's a minor nightmare. So there are videos that talk about lacing from that perspective. So it's like from sports to military to like outdoorsy stuff, all talking about the sun, because footwear is kind of a human universal. So I learned about this looping, and it's fantastic. It absolutely hugs my foot incredibly well. And the fact that I've got one size too big, now it just means I have extra wiggle room for my toes, or the idea was that I have extra space everywhere for thicker winter socks. Because I'm not going to wear these things with running shoe style socks. I still need to get boot socks for, we don't do, Minion and I don't do the Christmas thing. I don't like gift giving, but normally it would be like Christmas. You make fun of getting socks for Christmas, but how often do you wear socks? A lot. Optimize with good socks. It hurts me to have to say something like that because I myself am subject to that absence of knowledge. But yeah, how often did you use socks? All the time. It's how often do you use shoes? All the time. Well, get good stuff. Don't eat out for a while. Make your luxury goods something that lasts a lot longer, something you're really going to love. Wear comfortable socks. Wear comfortable shoes. Figure out the lacing stuff. At any rate. So, the bacon stuff before I move on. The bacon, it worked out pretty well. It's not the best. It doesn't seem like it's cooked enough. I should probably bake it separately and then put it in, something like that. It's okay. I don't think I'm going to hurt myself eating it because I cooked it at one temperature and then I heated it up to a recommendation and then cooked it for that amount of time as well. So it's kind of it's slightly drier than it probably ought to have been. But it's okay. I'll eat my dog food, so to speak. And I'll learn from this. I'll understand it. And I'll do it better next time and then next time and so forth. It'll be awesome. It'll be awesome. Hopefully I will have discovered something like a new recipe. We'll see. Oh yeah, totally. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll take a few minutes to talk about this before we get into some administrivia stuff that'll bore the socks off of people that aren't regulars. So Minion and I talked about this, and Minion already knows about this, and so I want to talk about pasta because I understand there's a reason I bought the pasta. They're actually called Scooby-Doos. I don't know how they get away with calling their pasta Scooby-Doos, but whatever. Scooby-Doo is I'll explain it really quickly again. You can imagine that it is like a macaroni, but it has an additional twist. Okay. And there are other noodles that are like this already. So it's a macaroni with an additional twist, but it's got ridges, lines going up on the outside. And this is a superior pasta, objectively, physics-wise, because it's not going to stick to your pot at all. And it's not going to stick because it's got just less surface area on the outside, so it's easier to slip around, doesn't stick to itself. And it occurs to me that you no longer need, and I did this a couple of times, you no longer need to bring your water to a boil first, because you have no concern about stuff sticking anymore. Because, hey, we have non-stick pots now. Even if your pot is ceramic coated, it's good enough to be non-stick to pasta. So you can actually just throw pasta in and no more this weird guessing of how much water or whatever the heck. You just throw your pasta in, cover it with water, cover it more with water because pasta expands when it's cooking, and then bring it to boil, right? And then turn the heat down to a simmer. And all along, you just soak it. Especially this pasta is not going to stick at all. It does not change it. It does not make it all droopy. It doesn't make it all starchy or something weird. It works perfectly fine. And it's one extra step that it's always bothered me, sitting around waiting for the pasta to boil before putting it in, and then having to watch it to make sure it doesn't boil over. All this stuff. It's always been annoying. But now, doing this just in time to stop eating pasta. Yeah, that's the way my life is anyway. So, and the salt thing. This is also recommended for rice. I never understood why salt gets added to water. And physics-wise, what it does is it lowers the boiling point. But objectively, like in the real world, again, first world problems, right? Like, I just don't care. Maybe it takes more energy. I don't notice that it takes less time. I don't know what's going on. Do you need to add salt so that something like the rice or pasta, something happens with the quote-unquote cooking of it? And as far as I know, no. I asked the French chef of mine, the friend of mine, and he's like, shrug. I don't know why we do it. Like, oh, great. Like, he knows what he knows. He just doesn't know why he does the things that he does. Great. Well, that doesn't help me any. So that's also something that I've never had. I've lived a life without adding salt to anything, although I started doing it for boiled eggs now. And I think maybe salt is one of the things that's absent in my life and that might influence my mood as well. Man, I'm complicated. I have to make myself a hobby to understand this stuff in order to improve myself, in order to pursue the things that I want to do in life for other people. It's like parents, you can live for your children, but unless you yourself are fixed, you're not going to be good enough for the things you want to be for your kids. You're not going to be able to help fulfill somebody else's dreams if you're busted, right? So you're not going to be able to donate money if you're in debt, or you really shouldn't if you are. I mean, there are certain circumstances where maybe you morally should, because you're helping, right? There's the reasons, right? Anyway, on to something else. So, got almost a half an hour. Let's get into some administrivia. Okay. Let me see. So the first idea, Minion, is for your to-do list. Could you make it so that, it certainly would help me, but for the audience it would help, which is each of the scenes that have like time till next break, have them say the segment number. So make a note of that. And that will help like an audience member that pops in. It'll let them know how much time there is remaining. And you could have a total show countdown if you wanted to. Maybe at the bottom right, maybe really small text, maybe it doesn't matter, right? And you can just say like segment 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3, and it's just some fixed text. Please do that. I think it would help people a lot. We're still working on style, obviously. I have no idea what to do about logo. I haven't thought about that in a while. I still kind of want to pay somebody to make something nice. But I mean, technically, it's not supposed to be my responsibility and any of that technically. So we'll do that later. But the segment labeling would be awesome. And the general style, like lining stuff up. Like right now, the number 22 is not lined up with anything, and it's a different size. So it's a little. I know people who are really picky about this sort of thing, right? Really picky. And it's not that I necessarily need to appease that mindset, but it would still be nice. It would still be nice to pretend like there is an audience that would care about that particular problem, because that's a motivator for improvement. And let me clickety clack with my notes, and I'll edit this out in post. One sec.
I immediately forgot what the initial thing was.
What I was just talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so label each of the segment numbers. So right now, well, first off, right now we don't have a break after this. We're done after this. So we can say time till show end or something like this. This is a little weird. But this can say segment 3 out of 3. And so the first one with the countdown timer, with the show timer, the time till next break would say like segment 1 out of 3. And then next one would be segment 2 out of 3. This kind of thing.
What would be the point of the segments other than the last part where we just talk over certain...
Well, if a person gets interested in the show early on, we need a way to tell them how long the show is so they can have that in their brain and be like, oh, well, I want to clean. I like this show. Things are great. I'm hooked. Let me make sure that I'm not making any other plans for the next couple hours. We want people to know this stuff up front, and we want to remind people to stick around for the next episode, the next segment, and then get them used to the length of the show for next time. So yes, it is valuable. Add it. You will not regret it. It is important.
Segment feels like we have something to talk in those certain blocks.
Well, how do you want to label one of these bits? That is the word that gets used by like shows. Because we're never going to have, well, okay, it will be one day that we will have particular topics per unit of time, and that we will, because I am ending a topic just before a break. I am starting to do that, and I'm just going to get better at it. And I am starting to have topic styles per each of these. It's just, I just get derailed and some interesting stuff happens. So it is going to be migrating towards more and more topical segments. It just sounds like the common word to use, I think. If you can think of something better, like, not my problem, technically. I'm just giving you really solid suggestions because, I mean...
I'll keep thinking of it in the meantime. We'll see how long it takes, but I'll keep thinking of it.
Sure. And don't forget, like, right now, time till next break makes no sense. So I should just say time till show end, or I don't know.
There have been the odd day where we just keep going where it just keeps going for a while, even longer.
Yeah, but like I have said last time you brought this up, we need people to be able to rely on the end of the show. We need technically to end the show no matter what at that time, right? So that people can go to bed, so people can have lives. And going overtime will torture the people that are most interested in the show because maybe they can't stay because they made plans. So we need to be reliable for that time. I am going to start stopping exactly on that time because I'm going to have a life. I'm going to have plans. So for example, if I was playing video games, for example, this would leave me with like an hour and a half before start time for raiding, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. So it'll be 15 minutes assembling people, an hour of doing stuff, and then 15 minutes plan. So I need to just end. So it turns out that Wednesdays are really good for me for that. But, right? We have plans that happen. Me and other people have plans that happen regularly. And every listener is going to be like that, where they need to know the schedule. The telling them when the breaks are helps them hold it until they use the bathroom, helps them go and get a snack at a certain time, helps them be relying on us. And having a solid end time, absolutely, it's something I'm going to do. For me, one day when you have a life, for you, and for every listener. So yeah, absolutely. We're going to end it. Overtime is just not going to be a thing for any reason.
Okay.
So, okay, next thing I want to talk about is the push to talk we just implemented. So one of the things with doing editing with the separate tracks, with headphones, with all this kind of stuff, is we have gentle audio quality improvement. And with the show that's going up tomorrow, I did some more audio editing tricks that I think are so good that I'm going to be able to just hand them to Minion. Volume levels will be fantastic. I understand how to do some additional tweaking. Like, I'm getting smart. Smart enough to write it all down and then forget it, so I don't have to know. Okay, so what we implemented is, because of the separation of tracks, I could actually hear Minion breathe with his open mic. And it's just the arrangement of his mic. He has got a headset, and the microphone's right there. And that is it, and it's an open mic. It's supposed to be voice sensitivity, but it's not. It is for Discord, so it is for the live stream going out. But recording locally, Audacity, it has a noise gating feature, but it's not any good. And so you can kind of do like almost like a push to talk that cancels out breathing or low end sound. You can do that in post, but I don't want to do that. I actually want to implement a push to talk. So I found some software. Apparently this is kind of hard to find. So he's got a hotkey, and only when he presses the hotkey does his microphone enable and lets him talk. So his breathing isn't picked up in an open mic. So it just in case there's traffic or something like that, that isn't picked up. And his voice comes in when he pushes and when he talks. So that's perfect. And I implemented the opposite for myself, so I can mute myself, so I can cough. And it is literally called, what is the term? A cough button, I think, is the actual term. And it's working out very well. I've had to cough a couple of times, and it's very nice. It's very helpful. I guess the next things I need to work on are my plosives, which happened at least once in this show. And then the next would be my breathing is picked up, and it's mic sensitivity. Like my microphone is actually, the gain is turned up all the way. And there are all kinds of problems, and there are nuances that I can fix. There's always room for improvement, so I'm still working on that stuff. And I kind of like you can hear my inhales between sentences, for example, like my labored breathing, but you can also hear my little chuckles and stuff like that. So it pays off having this sensitivity. So I kind of like it, maybe to be part of the show. Like, this is meant to be room level, like you're sitting in the room. It's meant to be pretty authentic. It's not necessarily meant to be sound studio quality stuff. Maybe that'll change later. Maybe we'll sell out and have like sponsors. This chair is sponsored by, but maybe we will be sponsored by Pepsi one day. Would I actually say yes to that? I don't know. That would be funny. I mean, so we are thinking about doing visual stuff anyway. Now, the other concern that I have working on it, I don't know if it's going to happen. I'll know if I've improved a little bit or not soon. Is my chair, because I wiggle my chair a little bit when I speak, and my chair has these little clicks or squeaks, and that will happen mid-sentence, and I can't clean them out. And it's torture, because I'll hear that. And in one episode, I don't know what was happening, but the clicks were happening all throughout the beginning part of the entire show. And maybe that was the chair. Maybe that was the chair, because I was in that mood, and I was just wobbling the chair. Like, you know, some people, how they shake their leg under certain circumstances. Maybe I've got that when I'm moving the chair around a little bit. I'm just like helping my back and this kind of stuff. And it was torture because I was fiddling with sound settings, and I wasn't sure if I was just wrecking my own audio with my sound settings, but it worked out. It worked out. So I'm working on this chair squeak. Man, I hope I don't have to buy a new chair because they're so expensive. But I've got a good recommendation if I want to spend a few $100 on a chair. Whew. At least I'll be getting a really, really highly recommended one. The other thing is car sounds. So I actually learned what to do about audio. I understand a little bit more about the physics and the audio engineering and stuff like that. This is going to be my next kind of hobby. So I'm pretty much done with the software side of stuff, and I'll be handing that over to Minion, and most likely the macro I will give him, which I think we can actually, I think it's good enough that I can probably share, because it's just a few lines of text. We can probably share in like the description of a video somewhere. And so I'll hand that off, and then I will take my interest and I'll move it towards the actual physical side of the engineering. And so I understand, like, you can purchase horrifyingly expensive panels and things like this, but it turns out that they're all useless. They're all useless for the category of sound that I want, which is bass, which is cars. And so I learned how I can actually manufacture, like I can build myself it's basically a really heavy frame, and it suspends, it encapsulates heavy insulation, like home insulation. And it has to be specific stuff, and it has to be heavy, like it has to be heavy. The idea is it has substance. And you box it in wood so that you have something to hold it with, and then you stretch a specific kind of fabric that you can blow through and you can feel your hand. So a fairly loose fabric, and you stretch that over for the beauty of it. Plus it has a certain kind of audio treatment effect as well. And then you hang it about an inch suspended away from the wall, like on little pegs or something. And so I would technically hang those up, and those would help with the bass. Those help absorb the bass. It is meant for my side of the room to absorb the bass of my voice from reflecting back. So I would have that behind me. But I think I will also get an impact from traffic, the sound coming through the walls. So I'm not sure. Maybe I'll build something, because I moved my microphone. It's on the edge of my desk. I'll talk about the moving too. And so I might be able to put like a little half arc around the microphone, and that might be all I need, is to just make sure that there's a shield around the microphone. And that would be wonderful. And the shield around the microphone, and then a shield kind of behind my voice. And maybe that would be enough to, oh man. Because of the audio treatment I'm doing in post, I can see and I can really hear the rumble of cars, even though I have a high pass filter, and maybe I have to just modify that high pass filter. I'm going to make a note specifically for that, because I probably should have thought of that at the time. Okay, one sec. Notice how I'm not typing and talking at the same time, because that was obnoxious. Okay, so the washing machine, now that I'm making arrangements to not have it in use at all, I don't think it's a big deal, but I had been looking at, there are these pads that you can get that go underneath the washing machine so it doesn't bounce around and make so much noise. And they're actually expensive, but I think they're just solid rubber. And I don't know that would matter at all. It might help quite a lot. But my main problem is the banging of the pipes as the water is being turned on and off by the washing machine. And I'll explore that some more. But it's not a problem that needs to be fixed anymore. So that's wonderful. Second last. So I've got a combination of monitor arms. I had been ordering this stuff from China, and it would take months to get here. And it didn't matter. I was buying stuff ahead of time, understanding that I would be making YouTube videos, and then that a podcast was possible. And here we are. And so I've had a collection of monitor arms, or pardon me. Well, I have monitor arms, but of arms that could hold doodads. And then I had to get adapter doodads and claw doodads and all this kind of stuff. So I've got all kinds of combinations of all sorts of things. But ultimately I had to purchase some very specific adapters to make sure that each of my devices can be held the way I want by the correct arm, by the correct stand, this kind of stuff. And I haven't built a list, so I can't really inform somebody else on how to do this stuff, which is really a shame. So I went looking around. I actually had to disassemble one arm to use some of the parts for another, and suspended a shock mount meant for a larger microphone. So when I upgrade this microphone to something higher quality, I already have a shock mount that works for it. I kind of jury-rigged my smaller microphone up to it, so it works really well. I've got a little pop filter, and I've got one of the foam caps for wind. Not that I have wind in a bedroom, but and it's looking great. I'm not sure what's going to happen on camera because it's going to be kind of in the view. Maybe I'll move it a little bit, but it's just hanging there. It's not in front of me, which people won't like. Like the highest quality hearing might notice the difference in stereo, but I really seriously doubt it. Theoretically speaking, I can like turn my chair and look into the microphone, but it's kind of up and on an angle, and that should mean the plosives are much reduced as well. So hopefully this show will sound a little bit better than the last, and the next will sound a little bit better than this one, and so forth. And what's interesting, I was looking around, before I realized I had so many desk arms for all this equipment, I actually went looking on Amazon to buy a new one. And I'm like, well, they're more expensive than ordering them direct from China. Go figure. It's not a surprise. And I'm looking at them going, why would anybody buy this thing? It's more than $100. And I look over, I'm like, oh, I forgot about this arm because it's holding a ring light. just because I can. It's a replacement for a lamp. And I'm like, wait a second. And I look over, and it's the same brand as the thing. Apparently I got a really great deal on something that is ridiculously expensive to buy on Amazon. Cause it's funny because I was musing to myself, like, what idiot would buy this incredibly expensive? And I'm like, oh, me? I guess I don't think I paid a whole lot for this thing at all. Because I think some of these were like $20. And I'm looking at it going, okay, well, maybe I should order a second one. Because this is a really nice extra long one. And it costs a little bit more. Maybe it costs $30, $35, something like that, which is not insignificant. And because I'm thinking about lighting next. I'm thinking about webcam stuff next. And then and there's a whole lot of other things that I need to think about in terms of lighting. And I've talked about glare and stuff like makeup and right? So lots of considerations, lots of fun for me to research that stuff. But World of Warcraft, so this is a video game I play primarily because I have an amazing set of people I play with. So it is fun because of them. New stuff is coming out, and that new content is literally coming out on Tuesday. It's not that important, but the new expansion, the new big game, oh man, hopefully it isn't coming out right away because I didn't set aside money for it. AAA games are not something to be taken lightly anymore. I'll figure it out. So I'm not sure when the full thing is coming out. I think it's coming out in like the next month or two, whatever. At any rate, that's going to be taking my time, and it is very likely that because very important content comes out a week after it launches, I'm just not going to be sleeping. I'm probably going to be streaming and probably be playing for 21 hours a day. And I don't know if there are many other humans that can do that. And maybe I can't anymore. But certainly I'm going to be playing for 16 hours a day. And I'm going to be putting the show on hiatus for at least 1 week. Right? Probably 1 week. So it's 2 shows that are going to be skipped. And so that is most likely going to be a Wednesday and then a Sunday after the launch, because the launch is going to be on a Tuesday, I think. I'm not sure how things are going to work, but I'll know ahead of time well enough, and we'll announce it and this kind of stuff. And we don't have a huge enough audience that the live show matters as much as it will in the future. So it just means there's going to be some dead time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to prepare some more interesting clips, or maybe Minion. I'll teach Minion how to pull the actual high quality clips back out from any shows. And there's some clips that are within the shows that I just found that weren't appropriate because they were long. And Minion can go exploring and can pull together the best ofs, or can take some clips and just kind of put them all together and make like little half an hour clip shows, or screw around. Or maybe we'll just have dead air and Minion can take a small vacation as well while he's doing his own stuff. Because Destiny 2 is coming out, isn't it? The new content? I can't recall.
Not until November, but right now I need all the time and somehow to step on tax in order to do things, but this will probably give me... I'm already past my I'm bored, I need to do things phase.
So you're trying to invent things to make yourself busy? Keep yourself interested?
I'm actually doing things.
Oh, because you're doing your own... I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about your own efforts. I really think you should one day because it helps hold you...
One day at some point, but right now it doesn't feel like a good accomplishment to start saying. I'm trying to avoid the routine of starting something and then doing it for a bit and then going, why am I doing this? I'm just going to stop and do something else.
Well, one of the things that helps people... So say, for example, a person wants to lose weight. One of the things that helps that person lose weight is telling people that they want to lose weight. And then what happens is they feel guilty, even though nobody brings it up. They feel guilty every time they're around when they haven't worked on it. And first, it depends on the groups of friends, right? But some friends will bring it up occasionally, even just as encouragement. And if the person hasn't done as much as they feel they could have, then they feel bad, and that feeling bad helps motivate them for next time. And so it's actually helpful for a person to talk about their life goals. And it helps that person hold themselves to what they desire. So I don't know how you work. That's your job to figure out. But for other people, talking about their, because like I said before, it's something you don't know. And if it's something you don't know, it's not just okay to be bad. You are going to be bad. It's the reality. And a lot of people play pretend like your very first, the very first time you admit to your stuff, you admit to your stuff with expertise, which isn't necessary, because you can present stuff and everybody can go, ah, ha, ha, you suck, and then catch themselves because well, of course, because this is your first try, of course, and often it's like, yeah, oh, haha, that guy sucks at that. And then they realize that they couldn't even do that. It might be like a sour grapes thing where it's like, well, I'm no good at that because I'm not trying. But I know if I tried, I would be better than it. It's like, yeah. Everybody can play the guitar until you try playing the guitar. It's not how it works. So, you know my opinion. My opinion is that if you were to talk about yourself more, and about what you want, being bad at it it's okay. It doesn't actually matter. I mean, partly because people are getting used to, I joke about a kind of comedy with your lack of motivation, but it's actually true. And I don't think it would be particularly surprising to anybody, including yourself, to actually admit that you are you, that you are like you. Especially if that helps motivate you to not be you, to provide more for your future self and all that kind of stuff. So, I could go on and on about that. So we've only got a few minutes remaining. I would love to talk about the archivistic side of things, about how we're going to be doing backups and stuff like that. But it's pretty obvious so people who are doing backups of their content, you should have it under circumstances where if your house catches on fire, it will survive. So often people will do off-site backups, which is actually getting cheap. You can get a terabyte free with some places. And hard drives are fairly cheap. And I have to start thinking in terms of, I think I need to buy a new hard drive for myself for this as well, which is kind of a surprising expense. But I'm probably going to be taking over all the archivistic stuff and making sure it's done right. And that's my specialty. And that takes it away from Minion. I don't need to get you up to speed on this stuff. We can start exploring the things you're good at. Start pushing some responsibilities over to you. I can teach you more and more. Do you want to spend some time after the show just doing a little bit more work to understand the audio editing stuff that I'm doing?
Not today.
That might be interesting. We can always delay.
Not right now, buddy. I'm doing catch up with a friend in Destiny 2.
Okay, so not a problem. So we have another show being uploaded tomorrow. I will probably have this one done tonight. So it's no rush. That means I can be able to provide more. And like every day we're putting new content out. So it's wonderful. At any rate, we're going to wrap the show up. This has been 2020-09-27, episode 22. And I'm going to see you guys all next Wednesday. Thanks.